Under the growing darkness of a setting sun and the rising moon, Alex ran. Each step he took sent vibrations up his weary body as he sprinted, glancing behind him on occasion, searching for his pursuers. He had just turned 18 3 nights ago, and his only present was a high fever. Made worse by today in a battle he had no chance of winning. The ministry rebels had ambushed them on the road, stopping the convoy with a flaming cart before slaughtering them with hidden archers and axe-wielding madmen. It was only by sheer dumb luck that the arrow meant for Alex lodged itself next to him in the cart he rode in. As the chaos began, he leapt over the side of the cart, drawn his mace, and from reaction alone, swung the weapon with great force into the face of one of his attackers. Even as he ran now, he could still hear the crack of the man's skull, still feel the force of the weapon jolt his arm. He had undoubtedly killed that man, father's child, a child's father. Spying on an opening, he had taken it and fled, away from the fighting and the screams of the dying. He was a coward, but a living one. He hadn't fooled himself into believing he was free yet, as rebel voices still called out to him, cruel taunts like wolves baying for his blood. "Come back, Royalist, we'll make the end quick," one shouted at him playfully. Was this all a game to them? As his heart raced in his ears, his head pounded, and sweat dripped from every pore. His eyes fell on the side of a thatch-roofed stone house, a peasant's home before the war drove them to the safety of the cities. Reaching the structure, he threw open the door, dashed inside. He slammed the door so hard he feared it might break it from his hinges. Using his mace, he slid its handle through the handle of the door, bearing it shut. Aside from the wooden door, the little house had a medium-sized window made of 4 squares of thick glass, held in a wooden frame. A man could easily fit through the window if broken, but would leave himself exposed for the time it took to climb in. Alex leaned on the table near the window, hoping to catch his breath. His knees buckled as he found himself in a slow tumble to the cobbled floor. Propped up on his hands and knees, sweat dripped on the floor like a light rain as Alex fell into a tearless weep. "So this is how I die," he thought, alone in an empty house. He thought back on his childhood, the games he played with friends. If only he had known how little time he had left. He remembered the hours he spent listening to his father tell him stories of brave heroes battling against the odds. Oh, how he wished he was one of those heroes. Reality is often so cruel. As he lamented, he was pulled from his despair as he heard the voice again, right outside the house. "Come outside, little Royalist. Die with some dignity." Lifting himself shakily with the aid of the table, he peered out the clouded window at the men who had pursued him so far. 4 men, wearing the yellow and black of the ministry, vile men who had sought to rule the kingdom themselves. Their armor was chainmail, light yet effective, though no match against his mace. They all wielded axes, capable of cleaving through him with ease. Not even his padded armor could stop it from ending his life with one strike. One carried a bow, arrow notched and waiting to be pulled back and loosed at him. At his best, he could maybe take 2 of them, but he was nowhere near that. Fever burned every inch of his body, and fatigue gnawed away at his ability to stand, much less fight. His best hope was to wait them out, though that would only prolong the inevitable. "If you won't die with dignity," the rebel began, as he wrapped a stick and soaked it in pitch, "then you can die screaming." With that, he lit the torch with flint against his axe and lobbed it onto the thatch roof, which quickly caught fire. Alex immediately fell back down on the ground as smoke began to fill the house. The fire would kill him if the smoke didn't. As the touch burned, his fever worsened, the body-wide ache making the mere act of living unbearable. Perhaps the sickness will take me first. But the fever grew worse as his stomach churned to a nauseating degree, as his skin grew hotter until he felt it would melt off if not combust. A problem not helped by his Gambisan armor. His eyes burned as he thought his very soul was aflame when it happened. It started in his chest, a pressure building in his ribcage until, crack, he fell flat as he released a pained and surprised yip. What sickness is this? The aching in his hands quickly turned into pain as he looked on in horror, as sharp claws tore through his fingertips, which now bled. His horror was soon overtaken with agony as his feet grew, bones cracking, shifting, growing and breaking some more. He heard the ripping of leather as his feet grew too big for his boots and shredded them to pieces. His fingers broke as his hands grew into something resembling an unholy marriage of paw and hand. "Gods, help me," he pleaded, tears rolling down his face as he dug his claws into his palms, feeling the warm blood seep out. His spine cracked as his shoulders shifted, broadening and hunching while his muscles grew beyond their normal size, straining his clothes as he increased in mass. One by one, the clamps of his armor snapped, tearing at the seams where Alex clawed at it to free himself from its restriction. Grey, brown and tan fur sprouted along his arms, chest and back. As his palms and soul turned black and rough, he clenched his teeth, the taste of blood filling his mouth, sharp canines tearing his gums as they became too big for his jaw, which began to ache. The gods had forsaken him. Fur covered every inch of his body and began to creep up his neck when his jaw finally gave and dislocated, stretching long and joining the lower half of his face into a muzzle. His ears moved upward and became pointed as a tail extended from the base of his spine. His fur crept forward, concealing his face, and his nose darkened. The beast he had become bore no resemblance to the man it was born from, and it had only one desire at that moment: hunt. Hi everyone, this is Mr.Blood. Hope you enjoyed this video, and if you did, please drop a like and don't forget to subscribe to my channel. It really helps a lot. Part 2 of Lineage of the Moon will be coming out hopefully tomorrow, and I hope you enjoy.